I have never seen him in better form. He ate and drank enormously all the time, settled huge problems, played bagatelle and bezique by the hour, and generally enjoyed himself. So wrote a future British Prime Minister about his predecessor at the Casablanca Conference in January 1943. Harold Macmillan, Minister in charge of Mediterranean Affairs at Allied headquarters, wrote these words after observing Prime Minister Winston Churchill and US President Franklin D. Roosevelt getting on famously and planning wartime strategy for the year ahead. Churchill had had a torrid 12 months. Initially, when the Japanese attacked the US Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor in December 1941, he was euphoric. He was convinced that with the United States in the war as an ally, and with the Soviet Union engaged with Nazi Germany in some of the biggest land battles in history, victory was inevitable. What he had entirely failed to realize was how bad the situation would become first, before reaching the long road to final victory. Only 3 days after Pearl Harbor, the Royal Navy lost 2 of its most powerful ships, the battleship HMS Prince of Wales and the battlecruiser HMS Repulse. They were sunk in the Sea off Malaya by Japanese torpedo bombers, with massive loss of life. Moreover, it was Churchill who had ordered the 2 warships to proceed to Malaya without an air escort, as a sign of British naval power and as a deterrent to the Japanese. In all the war, I never received a more direct shock, he later wrote of his reaction to the news. One disaster followed another. The Japanese army fought its own form of blitzkrieg down through the Malayan Peninsula, surrounding, isolating, and forcing into retreat tens of thousands of British imperial troops. In a matter of weeks, the Japanese had reached the mighty fortress of Singapore. This had been built up as a naval stronghold for nearly 20 years, a symbol of British power in the region. But its big guns pointed out to sea, and when the Japanese attacked, they came from the landward side. After a week of fighting, a British-led force of nearly 100,000 men surrendered to a Japanese force of about 1/4 that number. Photos of Lieutenant General Arthur Percival, the commander-in-chief, walking out to surrender accompanied by a white flag, went round the world. As well as being the largest British surrender in history, it was an imperial humiliation of epic proportions. Britain's power and prestige in Asia was shattered forever. Churchill did not make light of the disaster, saying in a speech to Conservative Party members, "Singapore has been the scene of the greatest disaster to British arms which our history records."